Hey everyone, welcome to Otaku Talk. It's me, your boy, your host, OD, and today we'll be reviewing and analyzing chapter 1072 of One Piece. I've said this like every chapter review ever since like we left Wano. I don't know if that's a reflection of how much I disliked Wano. It's like, nah, I gotta reread Wano because I don't know. I feel like a lot of us got really caught up in the lulls, and it's probably a much better arc on reread. But I have no desire to reread it anytime soon, and I'm still trying to reread the entire series. But anyway, what an amazing time to be a One Piece fan. I got to get someone to make some kind of like graphic so that like every time I say it's like what a great time to be a One Piece fan. But it really is a freaking phenomenal time to be a One Piece fan. So many things are happening in the canon of the story. So many things are happening in the world building. We're learning so much about different characters, lore, history. Like, honestly, it's going to be so hard to deal with all the breaks and stuff we're going to get this year. But Oda, keep fucking shooting fire at us. I'm gonna keep taking it because it's been a great experience. Before we get into this review, I just wanted to show off like my last review, a couple more of my Christmas presents, only because they're anime related. So, like I showed you guys before, a friend of mine got me that really cool One Piece holographic photo, and another student of mine got me that Luffy keychain. My girl got me this really cool One Piece straw hat keychain. So I really love this. And also, this one is also super awesome. She got me this. It's a little like glass lamp, and then you push this button and it like it has somebody. So it's really cool. For those of you that are new to this channel, I'm gonna be real with you. I'm broke as hell, and I don't believe in buying like paraphernalia and things for myself unless I can like afford them. So like, as I'm a super like anime fan, but I have like no paraphernalia. Now I'm exaggerating. I do have like some manga, some some figures and whatnot, but literally everything I have has been like gifted to me. Which, by the way, shout out to all my friends. You guys are awesome. Thank you for like all the stuff that is precious to me. But yeah, so I just really, really love and cherish when my friends get me little knickknacks, especially when these knickknacks are catered to my own personal taste because they know who I am as a person. So anyway, without much further ado, let's get into this review. And if this is your first time on this channel, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. All right, everyone, chapter 1072 of One Piece. This review is going to be a little bit ratchet because I'm going to be following along on my phone. Not because I'm reading it right now, just because there's so much I want to talk about and I don't want to miss it. And I really didn't feel like reading a script. So bear with me. I'll try to make it a little bit more seamless in the editing process. So we start off with chapter 1072, The Weight of Memory, and we get the following cover story of Mads. On the cover, we see Caesar, Queen, and Sanji's dad, Judge, right? And we see Caesar with, I guess the prototype smile fruit is the only thing I can assume that is. We see Queen with bubbling vials, which I can only imagine are like poisons and like diseases that he's concocting. And then we see Judge with, this spear weapon. So we do know that all of these scientists do have their specialties. Sorry. Queen has always seemed to be a virologist. Caesar, I never really understood what Caesar's specialty was. I always thought it had something to do with like gases because of his fruit. And then I thought Judge's specialty was cloning. So, but he's holding this like weaponized spear. So I'm very, very curious about that. We do know that the Vinsmokes do have a lot of, weaponry and stuff like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was also, a great like weapon specialist, right? So just real quick, something else I noticed was Caesar in this picture has the little like cloud scarf, and it makes me wonder: is he awakened, or is it just something he's doing with his devil fruit ability? Now, like Oda's opened a whole can of worms with this thing, but like he's done it before. We've seen him with it before, but it was kind of insignificant to us. We didn't really think about it. But now with what's coming out about awakenings, it's making me question it. And also, he's a Logia, so like I thought the Hagoromo scarf was indicative of awakened Zoans, but he's in a Logia, so something to think about. So anyway, we move on, and the beginning of the chapter starts with this, like, I don't want to say ominous, but this random excerpt from Vegapunk. And it basically says, even if the world does not accept how she came to be, the girl is unmistakably human. It was a success. I bear witness to the achievement, and I maintain that it is a huge step toward world peace. So, like we saw in the earlier cover stories, the entire point of Mads was to be pacifist, right? Everything that he's doing has been towards the greater goal of bringing about world peace. Now, I think that a reoccurring theme that's been happening throughout the entirety of Egghead is that we are going to find out that Vegapunk is exceptionally naive. We've seen it with countless characters in this series. They all have their strengths. They all have these tremendous, personality and character traits that make them who they are. However, they have these tremendous flaws that also make them who they are. And I think when it comes to Vegapunk, I think that he is just so rooted in science and the pursuit of science. He is willing to put his morals and ethics on the back burner occasionally. We can tell that he's a good person. I'm dispelling any, Vegapunk is evil. He's like tricking them, or even that his clone Lilith is doing it. I think that Vegapunk is a generally good guy in the way that Luffy is a generally good guy, but at the end of the day, his personal desires come first. And I think Vegapunk is no exception to that rule. His personal desire is to be a scientist, and so he wants to science and he wants to research and develop all these things, learn all these things while simultaneously, benefiting mankind. And he thought working for the Marines would do that, or he thought working for Mads would do that. And we're just seeing that, that's not the case. And sometimes you do have to kind of, take a step back and be aware of your, what's the word I'm looking for here? Naivety, right? Also, something really cool that I thought about was the fact that, um, even though Vegapunk says that all his stuff is made for the purposes of peace, we're seeing that they're being used for anything but. The pacifistas are being used for war. His inventions are being used for violence, and it just goes back to what we learned in Water 7 from Tom, that a tool, something you create, is neither good nor bad. How it's used, that's different. And so I think Oda is just really, now that we're going to the end, just rehashing and just bringing back to the forefront of our memory old things and ideas that he wants us to remember. Speaking of which, I checked out the Reverie. Check that out, fucking phenomenal. One of my goals as a streamer, besides getting subscribers and stuff like that, is to end up on the Reverie one day, and they had a phenomenal Reverie, so check that out. And they discuss a lot of things. Part of me wants to do some kind of review series, not review series, but like reaction series where I respond and comment on some of the topics they talked about, or respond to some of the theories and things they threw out there. So if you're interested in that, please let me know. So anyway, after that, we see a chibi version of Joribani crying on the ground, right? And something I wanted to say, it's not a big issue, but I do foresee people talking about this, and that's the fact that I just don't see how it has been so difficult for Joribani, a supernova, to catch Vegapunk. I was actually going to say this in my last review, and it slipped my mind. But now that we're here, I just don't understand how Vegapunk has been able to elude her the way he has, and that the fact that she has to rely on like petty little tricks like this to get him. But whatever. You One thing I do understand as a One Piece fan is a lot of things that are done purely for the sake of the gag, for the joke. And so obviously, could Joribani, if she was, I don't want to say if she's serious, because she's clearly serious, but if Oda wanted to make this more serious, could Joribani just have subjugated Vegapunk at her whim as quickly as she wanted to? Obviously. But once again, I really do think that Oda's just trying to lean into the joke here. The problem is starting to come that there are many things that are happening in the series recently that we once thought were jokes that are now becoming like canon to the story, in terms of they're not jokes, they're actualities. And so I just want to say Oda needs to be a little bit careful with how he does these things, but he's such a phenomenal mangaka that, like, I'm fine regardless. And even if he does make, I don't want to say mistakes, because maybe what's a mistake to me isn't a mistake to someone else. But even if he makes little mistakes here or there, in my opinion, it doesn't tarnish or adulterate the overall quality that is One Piece. We're still getting phenomenal works of fiction. So anyway, she's pretending crying like she's hurt, and Vegapunk, the naive scientist he is, once again that theme of naivety coming up to get bite him in the ass again. He comes to save Joribani, who immediately turns into an adult form of her from like a bad future. And I was really, really hyped for this. I was super excited because Oda has been showing us recently that there are different future versions of the Straw Hats and different characters in One Piece. Literally, the Reverie I watched, they were talking about that, right? And so I think it's super cool that not only can she age and de-age people, she can kind of choose what future that she's aging them in. So that is a completely different aspect of her power that like I think is such a phenomenally cool concept. Also the fact that like that Oda is putting it in our minds that there is this idea of good futures, bad futures. A lot of people are talking about is Luffy lucky? Is Luffy lucky? Is it fate? And I think One Piece and I think just Japan in general has this idea about fate and also the fact that luck, fate, and things like that are all interchangeable. And I've been one of those people that doesn't like the idea of luck, but I do like something like being an anime fan, something that I really, really do like is the idea that they have where it's you like luck is a thing, but you have to put in effort. So for example, this is a bad example, but say I'm playing the lottery, right? If I never play the lottery, I'm never going to win. But if I play the lottery every single day or like every week or whatever, and I win, am I lucky? Yes and no, because yes, yes, winning the lottery in and of itself is lucky as hell. But also I put myself in the situation to receive that luck. And so I've noticed that a lot of Japanese manga and like I've seen it in American manga and stuff like that, like Western stuff, but like a lot of them believe that like hard work and luck are kind of interchangeable and that the harder you work and the more you put yourselves in positions uh it, where opportunities will arrive or arise, the more lucky you can become or the more you allow your luck to work in your favor because you've worked towards that. Also, just to piggyback off that, something I'm really, really curious about is was Lady Toki able potentially to choose what future she leapt to, right? And so what I mean by that is could she have chosen like we don't really to this day we know that she had some sort of goal, but we don't know what her goal was. And it's like could she have been like, I want to jump to a future. I have the desire to jump to a future in which X happened, in which Y happened. And then she was taken to that future. And so it kind of, in a way, solidifies and cements Luffy's success, but in a way that doesn't rob him of any. It's just that in this particular future, all the series of random events and circumstances that need to have happened occurred. So yeah, Bonnie turns into this giant to this adult form of her from a dystopian future, I guess, where she is extremely top heavy and not in the good way. And also another thing that I think people are going to talk about is the fact that Jewelry Bonnie's powers have always been different than others in the fact that when she affects herself or someone under her devil fruit, they change, but their clothes don't change. And we've seen several times when devil fruits affect people, typically their clothes change along with them. However, like that wasn't the case with Jory Bonnie. As we saw, the Marines, they would always be kids with giant ass Marine uniforms. With her, she went from her skimpy outfit to like an outfit that fit just right when she was in her chibi form. And so something I noticed was, hey, Oda, did you forget the rules? Because like the clothes are morphing and adapting with her size. But then I realized, wait a minute, okay, maybe Oda actually is prepared for this, and it's more of a situation where Vegapunk's clothes are so futuristic and advanced that they adapt to the individual user. So if the individual user changes size or does anything particular like that, the clothes will adapt. So that's the headcanon I'm deciding to go with, right? So also, so right after that, she attacks Vegapunk with this attack called Timely Thrust, hits him with the pipe she found. At first, I was nervous because I was like, did she like age the pipe, make it longer, and hit him? No, the Timely Thrust had nothing to do with the weapon she used. It was just she was able to use her power through the weapon as a medium and turns Vegapunk into a child. Something that was very interesting and that we've never seen before, at least in my opinion, was when he changes into a child, all these little knick-knack and shiny things come out of him, and he concludes, or at least tells us, the reader, that these are the accumulation of his, these are like representations of the accumulation of his years. And so he's freaking out at first, but she was like, organic biological things eventually turn back to their original size. So that was very interesting. So it's not like, Boa Hancock's ability where you turn to stone and like only she can turn you back. You turn to a child for a certain amount of time and eventually you will turn back. So it's good to know that Joribani's ability does have limits, but maybe that's her non-awakened abilities, right? And so something about that really, really intriguing because I was like, she specifies biological things would turn back. I was like, does that mean her power works on non-biological things, non-organic things? And I was under the impression that that was only the Kunoichi's ability, and I think like one other person. I didn't think that Joribani's abilities worked on inorganic material, but then literally after catching Vegapunk and seeing this giant room with a paw on it, obviously that's something related to Kuma is in there. She goes over to the lock and uses her Devil Fruit ability to age up the lock till the point that it rusts and falls off. She enters this room and there is a giant paw bubble, right? Vegapunk, the entire time that she's interrogating Vegapunk, he tells her, listen, I can't tell you like why I did what I did to your dad. All I can tell you is it was his choice. This is not on me. He made this decision. He did it to protect you. And when he says that, immediately my mind starts racing. I start thinking of so many things. The first two things I think about are either he directly was trying to save her, i.e., like the world government wants either her or her devil fruit for some nefarious purposes, and he was like no, and this was the only way he could long term save her, or it's a situation where he's trying to save the entire world and she is, she's the most important thing, in the world, so de facto she gets protected, and this is a countermeasure that he knew was necessary to, stop the world government, to intercede with them. What that is, we still don't know. While we're being told this story, we're like flashing back and forth between Kuma currently climbing up the red line to reach Mary Joie, just like the ancient robot from years ago. So we have that parallel as well. So there's a lot going on right now. Does Kuma have the same goal as that ancient robot? Is this a separate personal goal of Kuma's? Is this programming from Vegapunk? We don't know in the slightest. Now, also while we're learning about that, Joribani basically alludes that like wants to know what the paw is, kind of has an idea, and it looks like she's going to touch it, right? And we get another, not a flashback, I don't think it's a flashback, but it's essentially Vegapunk saying that a scientist from the, I think, West Blue, he said. I had my phone and I put it down, so I don't want to check it right now, but I believe the West Blue, and I didn't think anything of that until I was reading some comments, and somebody was like, yo, that's definitely Dr. I was about to say Eggman, Hogback, Dr. Hogback from the Thriller Bark arc. And we find out that when humans die, that there are 21 grams of matter that somehow disappear. And so a lot of scientists have attributed that missing mass to potentially being the soul, right? And so something we learn here is they're talking about soul, but then they go into talking about memories, which is something that I personally on my own have always thought about, because I've always been like, okay, what makes a human, like what makes a person themselves? And the two things we always hear about are like the brain and the heart, mainly the heart, but the heart makes no sense. All it does is pump, blood through our bodies, but for some reason, figuratively, like we've we've made that about ourselves. But I've always thought it's the brain. It's our memories, what we've experienced and how we've adapted them and what we've done in our life and circumstances. That's what makes us us, i.e., not our brain, but more so our memories. And so I think Vegapunk tries to convince her that it's a pain bubble, similar to what Zoro experienced in Thriller Bark. Once again, another fun Thriller Bark parallel throwback. If the scientist he was talking about was Dr. Hogback, which makes so much sense because he worked around zombies and death and stuff all the time. So it would make sense for him to learn something like that from here. Also, really surprised that Hogback wasn't involved in Mads at all. So that would be interesting too. So I, for a second, thought, what is this bubble? What's its purpose? I thought it would be a really cool thing if, when he became a cyborg, or in order to become a cyborg, he made this pain bubble that's always separate of him. That way, as a pacifista, he can somehow retain a little bit of his humanity, and anytime he's injured or hurt, all that pain gets transferred to this bubble. So essentially, he's just what's anesthetized, not anesthetized, but like I don't know. He's like basically he can't feel anything. I don't know why my vocabulary is escaping me right now, but he basically can't feel anything at that moment. But that was not the case. It turns out, or at least my theory is, it's a memory bubble. So that is kind of my theory. Now I do think it's super clever. You know that not only does he have the ability to pull out pain, but he has the ability to pull out memories. That's super interesting. But I had no clue. I had no clue that's the route we were going. But it's my idea was the same angle where she was going to be able to access his memories, and I like it's going to be done in a way where Vegapunk doesn't betray Kuma's trust in him or anything like that. Bonnie basically forced it on herself, so Vegapunk keeps his promise, while Juri Bonnie gets to find out what the hell happened to her dad, and then we get to see how she reacts to it. But yeah, really look forward to, in the next chapter or so, getting flashback on Kuma's memories, learning more about Kuma as a character and a person, because that's someone in the One Piece community we've always wanted to learn about. Learning more about Juri Bani, her upbringing. Part of me is kind of suspicious that there may be something special about her. Perhaps she as well is also a clone or something like that. So I'm very, very curious about that, because I'm gonna be real with you. Doesn't really look like Kuma too much, and we don't really know anything about her mom. We know about the Queen Dowager and stuff like that. So there's a lot to, be discovered here. Anyway, we flash back to the Labosphere and we see the Straw Hats and Shaka looking at the security footage, and we find out that, the CP0 are here along with all the Seraphim. Now, at first I was kind of freaking out, right? Because I was like, how the hell are they going to handle this? But it turns out this might actually be advantageous to us, because now they're closer to the Vegapunk satellites. And so if the Vegapunk satellites get to them and bark orders, then they're going to turn sides. However, I think this is going to be much easier said than done, simply because Rob Lucci is there with some other people. So maybe it's not going to go that well. Maybe similar to Sentomaru, he's going to see them as a threat and take them out immediately, which is why I'm super happy that Nami forced Sanji to go after them. And I'm loving the fact that, like, at first he's like, of course, and then he kind of pretends like he's being controlled like a Seraphim, and he's like, I'm a Miraphim. And like at first he's all like, Navi Swan, yeah, I'm a Marathon. Your orders are absolute to me. But then like there's a second where he breaks out of it, his two personalities, which is being like a hopeless romantic, like chauvinist or whatever, and then turns to like his hate of Zoro, but like, why do I have to help that moss head? And then I love that like the gag is even further continued with Frankie, who calls him a swirl of him. So we're just all out here making jokes, and I'm absolutely here for it because it's hilarious. But yeah, so we see Lilith and what's the other guy's name? Lilith and the one that's inventive spark or flare, the one that's the flare one, not Pythagoras. I forget his name, but he's in a jetpack, the cat looking one, flying. Lilith's running with a weapon, and then Sanji's running after them. So I honestly don't think it's going to be that easy to get the Seraphim back on our side. I just don't. I don't know. I just don't really see that happening. So after that scene, we cut back to. Oh, by the way, speaking of that scene, still to this moment, don't know who brought down the barrier, and I still don't know who Vegapunk called for help. And we're gonna go into that a little bit more after this next part. So we have Zoro and Brook defending the Sunny. Basically, Zoro says he's gonna handle Kaku and tells Brook to just watch the Sunny. So I'm assuming he wants him to watch for any collateral like sword slash damage that might approach the you know the ship, just as like I said, collateral from the fight, or not collateral. Yeah, collateral damage. Yeah, collateral from the fight, or in case someone else tries to sneak up and damage the Sunny, or fight Zoro, something like that. So while he's doing that, we see Haku enter his Zoan form, and this man is awakened. And I'm gonna be super real with you. I'm a little annoyed. I'm a little annoyed. Was I annoyed with Rob Lucci? Of course not. That's Rob Lucci. He's an apex predator. He was an amazing assassin. He was a prodigy. I totally get it. He's had that fruit for a while. But here's the thing with Kaku. One, Kaku got that fruit, that arc. He got the fruit during Ennis Lobby. Yeah, Ennis Lobby. He got the fruit during Ennis Lobby. So he hasn't had it that long. Also, just like hockey, I assume that, your devil fruit grows with you, and, the more, what's the word I'm looking for here? The more fights and stuff you experience with it, the more you're willing to level up with it, if you catch my drift. And I just can't think about what they've been through that's been to the level of Luffy about awakening his Devil Fruit. Now, once again, are all Devil Fruit awakenings cut and dry? Are they the same? Do they take X amount of time? Maybe Luffy's awakening, even though he's had it since he was a kid, maybe because his Devil Fruit is so powerful and it's based on the sun god Nika, it takes extraordinary amounts of effort and time to awaken it. And maybe lower Zoans, like, they're just basic animals. They're not even mythological. So maybe that's the reason they were able to awaken so quickly. I don't know. I'm just speculating. But I am going to say I'm slightly annoyed, both because of, one, how long it's taken people we know to achieve awakening, as well as the fact that we literally just had an entire arc full of Zoan Devil Fruit users, and we didn't find out if any of them were awakened. And the ones I'm talking about specifically are Kaido, Queen, King, and the Topi Roppo. Because if anyone should be awakened, it should be those guys. So, really annoyed here, really hoping to learn more about awakening. But yes, it is very, very clear that Kaku is awakened. And also, not only is he awakened, but he's complete awakened. So he has, it looks like the flames. I didn't see a shawl, but maybe I'm missing it. But if he has the flames, he definitely should have the shawl, right? Or maybe the shawl is just an extra step. But another thing is, he never liked his Devil Fruit, and I don't really think he synergizes with that being a giraffe. So I don't know, the logic we got about how, like, your will and the will of the Zoan Fruit co-align, I don't know what's going on here. Anyway, we have some really cool clashes with Kaku and Zoro. Zoro does look like he's being pushed back a little bit, but honestly, not that much. And Zoro basically says, I've had my fill of fighting critters with zigzagging attack patterns on Wano, and I'm very curious, like, who he's referencing, who did that to him. I'm very curious specifically. I know, like, other like YouTubers would probably know, were probably be like, oh, he's talking about whatever. I honestly don't know, but he gets annoyed, and it looks like he immediately slashes back and knocks Kaku the F out. And when I say that, I don't think Kaku's actually, like, unconscious, but he takes him down relatively easily. So screw his awakening. Zoro's beyond that, right? And so anyway, we're told Seraphim quickly before Vegapunk gets here, destroy the lava sphere, and they just absolutely go to town destroying the lava sphere. Also, something else we learned is, despite being Seraphim and having to receive orders, we're also told that because of, their purpose, which is, to be military weapons, they're able to assess situations and act accordingly, which is why, despite not being told to go to the lava sphere, Once the bear was taken down, they were able to assess this is the best opportunity to accomplish the goals of Rob Lucci and destroy the scientists of Egghead and capture Vegapunk, right? So anyway, while they're doing all that and they're distracted, uh Kaku's talking shit about how, not talking shit, but he's basically like, wow, the Seraphim really know how to razzle and dazzle. They're doing our job for us. And while that's happening, we see someone bite him, right? And then we find out that person is Stussy. Turns out she was, in fact, well, we don't know, actually. We actually don't know because there's a comment that made me question things. So we see Stussy and she bites, and then in the next panel, this bitch has black wings and she has like blood on her. And I was like, this motherfucker was a succubus. And if you know about succubus, they're like lustful creatures that devour and prey on men and devour their lust. Some of them are more like energy succubi, which devour your lustful energy and stuff and drain your vitality. And then there's succubus that are more like vampires and like can like drink your blood type. So it looks like she's the drink your blood type. I'm very, very curious if this is a devil fruit ability, if this is some lineage factor shit. But we find out that she is the first ever successful clone of Mads. And not only that, not only is she the first ever successful clone of Mads, she's a clone of Miss Buckingham Stussy of the Rocks Pirates. So she used to be on the original version of this clone used to be on the Rocks Pirates. So I'm very, very, very curious about this, and I can't wait to learn more. Also, it's so fitting how the head of the pleasure district, the red light district, is a succubus. So once again, Oda just in your face with it. At first I was like maybe vampire, but no, it's clearly succubi, right? And on top of that, now I want to, not only do I want to know more about the clone Stussy, but I want to learn more about like who she was cloned from, why they chose to clone her. The first person that comes to mind is Sora. You know, maybe Sora was sick and he was trying to, you know, do cloning to, you know, make a healthy version of her and then maybe take the cells or whatever from the healthy version of the clone and put it in this version. Who knows? I'm spitballing. I'm scrambling. I don't really know. I'm just spitballing here. A lot of people have hoped this was Koreha. You know, honestly, I don't think it's going that route. A lot of people think it's the Whitebeard's mom, the Whitebeard Jr.'s mom, and that Whitebeard Jr. is some kind of failed clone of Whitebeard. That would be super interesting. But now it makes sense as to why Stussy's face, or the one that looked like Stussy, was, you know, kind of shaded and blacked out. It's because it's not Stussy, but the original, and so that was Oda's way of kind of. Okay, so while I'm editing, I decided to check the wiki, and there's definitely something here. So I'm looking at her wiki, and even though she's called Bakken, her official English name is Buckin. So that sounds a lot like Buckington, right? We also know that at some point she was on the same pirate ship as Whitebeard, and Whitebeard used to be on the not the Blackbeard Pirates, used to be a member of the Rocks Pirates. So I really, really do think that this actually is a clone of Bakken, and this is crazy. And that Whitebeard is some kind of failed clone. And I think that she was like lustful or really like attracted to Whitebeard, but for whatever reason, he just was not into her. And so while they were together on the ship or what have you, she stole whatever DNA she needed to make the clone and made a cloned version of him. On top of that, I really like the fact that Joribani is here on this island because if for some reason she ages up Stussy, if Stussy ends up looking like Bakken, that's it right there. It's a wrap. But yeah, there is definitely credence to this fan theory without question, giving us that kind of allure, right? Speaking of being a traitor, we're still not sure if Stussy is the traitor. She doesn't really say anything indicative of being a traitor. Like Rob Lucci, he clearly is shocked. He is clearly shocked in the panel. His eyes are massively wide, and he looks at her and he's just like, what are you doing? Also, by the way, as I'm reading this, I do see that Kaku does have the shawl, so yes. But he's like, what are you doing? And she's like, who, me? I'm just putting him to sleep. Would you please join him, Lucci? I think it's time for your cat nap too. Now, half of me is like, oh my god, she's a traitor. She's secretly working for Vegapunk. This is her like parent, quote unquote. But then the other part of me is like, well, Lucci and Kaku are violating world government orders, and so maybe this is her way of putting them down because they're violating orders. They've been like Lucci specifically has been told repeatedly not to engage with the Straw Hats, not to engage with the Yonko, and he's engaging with the Yonko. So I think she could just be super loyal to the Marines and doing her actual job, or the world government, not just the Marines, the like world government, the Celestial Dragon. She could just be super loyal and just being like, "Hey, we gotta go. You're going far above and beyond what our orders are. I'm getting out of here." Or she could actually be working for Vegapunk. Speaking of working for Vegapunk, is she actually the voice that we talk to? And honestly, I don't see it because she is a clone, not a robot, right? I mean, I guess there are like robotic clones, but I just don't see it because that whole conversation, Stussy was literally right next to Rob Lucci. So unless she can communicate, unless she does have some kind of like cyborg stuff going on with her, and she can communicate like, not, I don't want to say telepathically, but like wirelessly, I still do not think that the ally they called is Stussy, but I could just being really stubborn. I could just be being really stubborn right now, but who knows? But anyway, I'm gonna leave the review there for now. This is a phenomenal review. So much to talk about. So yeah, what do you guys think? What do you think about this chapter? What do you think about Kuma, Jewelry Bonnie, Kaku being awakened, Stussy not only being a clone, but also a possible potential turncoat, but also based on a former member of the Rock's Pirates. And yeah, I'm just gonna leave it there for today. Thank you guys for tuning into Otaku Talk. It means the absolute world to me. I hope 2023 is the year where I blow up. If not, it's whatever. I'm gonna keep doing me. Anyway, please take care. Have a great weekend. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Peace.